Alex at Coram Farm. We are a year 4 Oklahoma flower farm that sells retail market bouquets from our roadside stand. But we are headed into year 5 this fall with our planting, which is super exciting, which means it's time to talk about all of the flowers that we're going to grow in 2026 in our 5th year of flower farming. And spoiler alert, you probably saw it in the title, we are slashing our grow list again. It's like my favorite thing to do is to narrow down exactly what is profitable, what grows well in Oklahoma, and that our customers love. It's trying to combine all of those elements, being aware that emotions can get in the way when you're trying to decide on crops, and it can be hard to drop things and all of that. If, when I go through this list, you are asking yourself, what about this flower? Why don't you grow this flower? I will link another video in the description where we talk about all of the flowers we don't grow and why. And it includes a lot of maybe what you would think are obvious flowers that you do see on other flower farms. I talk a bit about our thought process in deciding to drop those. So that would be a good video to watch after this if you haven't seen it yet, if you're wondering why certain flower didn't make the list. But the first thing to say, and this accounts for a decent amount of the flowers dropped, is we decided that we are going to shrink our summer season even more next year. So in year 1, we did all summer. So I only planted summer annuals. So we were open like July, August, September until frost in October was year 1. Year 2 was tulips, and then early summer annuals, and then a full summer and fall season. Year 3 was full spring, so that's when we introduced ranunculus, anemones, all of that. So we had flowers March through September. Year 4, so this year, we decided to be done in summer more, like take more of the summer off. And so our summer season ended the 4th of July, which I know for you people up north, that sounds crazy, but we are really warm in Oklahoma, even though we're only a zone 7. So we're having sunflowers in May. So closing mid-June means I had 2 months of summer annuals that we sold. So we were closed for most of July, all of August, and then we also dropped our fall season for cut flowers. Now going into year 5, we are cutting even more out. So we are planning to be done around the week after Mother's Day weekend, be closed until the end of June, and do a short, like mini summer season focused on Lisianthus. We'll talk about that when I get to that flower and what some recipes will look like. And then be done July, August, and all of the fall. So that means we will be open for our spring, 3 months, and a short little, well, technically 2 months, and then a short 3-week summer. So for a total of 3 months. And I believe because of our spring demand, we will still be able to sell the same amount of revenue and probably even exceed it by really focusing on spring and scaling up in our quantities there, which will make it even easier to make that decision to drop a bigger chunk of summer. I will say having July and August off from farming was a wonderful joy this year for us, for our family, for our exhaustion level. It was the right decision. And it made me even more excited because it means that I can drop zinnias from our farm completely. There will not be a zinnia next year. I know they always say that, you know, each decision is not always permanent, so that doesn't mean that in the future we might try to do something different or bring them back in, take something else out. That could totally happen. But next year, we are almost growing no summer annuals. We'll talk about that. And I am thrilled. I'm really thrilled. So I'm going to try to go through the flowers that we are growing for 2026 season in order more or less of about when they bloom on our farm, and kind of you can see what will go together. If when going through this, you want to know exact varieties, you want to know our planting date, our quantities, where it's going in our tunnel or field, again, all of the varieties. If you want like all of the nitty-gritty crop planning details, I'm sharing all of that over on Patreon. I'll put a link in the description. I'll be honest with you guys, when we started Patreon 13 months ago, so we had our year anniversary, I totally didn't expect this many people to sign up. We have a lot of members over there, and it has been such a joy to create even more content for everyone, and doing Q&As and being available to directly answer questions that people have, and getting into the sort of details that honestly doesn't always translate the best in a YouTube environment. So if you are a flower farmer that does want help with that, or you just want to see in more detail what we're doing, I'll put that link in the description. All the detail ladies are over there on Patreon, but let's talk flowers. First up are tulips. That's the first thing that blooms on our farm. We plant them towards the end of the year. It's funny, this will be our 4th year with tulips, and the 3 years in a row, and we had all different kind of winters, but 3 years in a row, the tulips bloomed the 3rd week of March. Not necessarily each time with enough quantity that we maybe opened the flower stand the 3rd week of March, but I definitely started the full-on harvest and accumulating stems in our cooler process the 3rd week of March. Watch, now that I say that, like something wacky is going to happen, but I generally anticipate the season starts the 3rd week of March, and so we tend to have our opening day that last Saturday in March tends to be when we kick everything off, and it starts with tulips. We're growing more this year than we did last year. Not a ton more, because I'm a little bit of a one-woman show here. Eric does a lot of the maintenance, logistic, heavy-duty farm work. I tend to be the harvest and bouquet maker side of our team, and I homeschool our 5 kids, so staying on top of tulips when you kind of hit a certain quantity, you just end up leaving a lot to blow out in the field. And with tulip margins already pretty small as it is, I don't want to overextend myself and just have a ton of loss in the field, and then that was just a waste of expenses in growing more than I know I can realistically stay on top of harvesting. Tulips. If you want to know our tulip varieties that we're growing, we have a video for that. I'll link that. I'm going to say that a lot, but I think that can be helpful, especially if you're kind of in a binge watching mode. You can kind of go through this list, but tulip varieties, link in below in the description. Next that blooms are Ranunculus. We invested in a high tunnel for this year, a high tunnel being like a big high tunnel, not a caterpillar tunnel. We are doubling our space, so it's the equivalent of 2 farmer friend tunnels is what we have. And so we are going to grow more Ranunculus. This year, well, I should say the year before, so year 3 was incredible for Ranunculus. They were picture perfect, not one issue. This year was the opposite. We had record-breaking precipitation, and we suffered a lot of rotting loss, and then just short stems because the plants before they set buds just were so stressed that they didn't have much to give. So the stems were pretty short. It was really hard, and it was a bummer, and it definitely was a loss in revenue. We did the absolute best we could. We sold every quality stem that we had in the tunnel, but we definitely didn't get anywhere near what we should have with how much we've planted. And we're pretty much planting a similar-ish amount this year, expecting a better year, which will then ultimately mean a lot more stems for our customers. And hopefully we won't be selling out quite as soon at the flower stand. Our goal continues to be open the full day on Saturday, constantly restocking the stand, versus, selling out in 90 minutes, 2 hours, which is super exciting and it's exhilarating and it's just like really fun and the energy and everything. But we could still sell 70 plus more bouquets each Saturday if we were open for longer and more people, had the opportunity to come if their schedule doesn't, line up quite at, opening time. So that's our goal. So hopefully with this, everything going well in the fancier tunnel, we will hit the ranunculus stem numbers that we want. The next thing we have are snapdragons. Snapdragons are incredibly important on our farm. Back when we grew in the summer, we also grew them in the summer and the spring. I constantly am trying to crop plan in such a way that I succession plant snaps to have them just constantly going. That's been a bit tricky because I'm trying to balance a limited amount of space and not overplanting with also needing them frequently. So we are going to overwinter some snaps, and then we are going to early spring, late winter plant snaps, and hopefully the bloom times are staggered, and I will have a good amount of Snapdragons for all of April through mid May when I need them. And we're trying a bunch of different varieties and stuff, but we'll have fall and spring planted Snapdragons to go hopefully with the Ranunculus. Next thing I have is Campanula. So Campanula was new to us this year. I love Campanula. It was growing really well and I did it correctly. And then the rains came. That sounds so ominous, but it's like a story, a children's story. And then the rains came and they drowned. Like 10 days before Mother's Day. Like we came so far. I was so optimistic. And then it just was ultimately, I think we had like a 5-inch rainstorm after nonstop rain. And the plants were just like, I am in a swamp. I cannot do this. But I know that my planting timing was correct. My spacing was correct. Everything that I was doing was correct minus the rain. So we're going to do it again. I'm really excited about Campanula. It tends to bloom for Mother's Day or give or take around then, which is when I really need stems. So I'm excited to properly experience high tunnel Campanula, which I know can get giant and just really exciting. So Campanula. And then I am trying a new flower this year. I don't tend to do that very often, but this is what I would consider an addition to our grow list instead of just slashing and burning all the time. And that's stalk. I know that it is polarizing. Some people, that is a flower that they definitely drop and they don't want to deal with. Other people really love it, especially if you wholesale to florists. Wholesale florists love locally grown stalk because it's so much better than the imports that they get. The reason we are going to try stalk is because it is a flower that can bloom around Mother's Day, and that is the time when it's really hard to get other spring flowers, yet our demand is the absolute highest. So for Mother's Day, tulips are long gone, pretty much unless you long stored the very last of the ranunculus, and we got really lucky with a cooler spring. The ranunculus are done. You're left with peonies and like scraping the barrel often with foliage, and that is not sufficient necessarily for a bouquet, but stalk can bloom around then. So I am going to try it. I am going to trial a couple different varieties, a couple different colors. I've been doing my research in the hopes that I can get it to bloom around that time. If it does, it will be a flower that stays on our farm because of the Mother's Day timing. If I wasn't in need of stalk with the bloom timing for Mother's Day, I don't necessarily think I would pick it. I'd probably just do more Snapdragons in a variety of colors, but maybe I'll see it and it'll go really well and I'll decide I absolutely love it. But TBD. Check back in May on my official thoughts on stalk. And then we have larkspur. Larkspur will also bloom around Mother's Day. So we are going to grow a row of it in the field, but I'm also going to trial a section of it in the tunnel with the hopes that perhaps it'll bloom a little bit earlier, and then I'll just have more secondary, focal, filler, whatever category you want to put it in, to complement our focal flowers like peonies at this time. I just need more larkspur. So I'm going to put it in 2 different locations and cross my fingers that the timing works out nicely. The larkspur this year were absolutely perfect for Mother's Day. They just like came on their biggest flush the week before. I was cutting so hard on it, putting it in our cooler, and I love larkspur. I'm going to try 2 different varieties this year. I've usually only done just one variety in a mix, but I'm adding a second variety just because I'm a wild and crazy gal and I want to compare and see bloom timing, size, all of that sort of thing. So we're going to do that. And then Bupleurum is what I would consider the only true filler or greenery that we grow on our farm. And the reason being Mother's Day. It blooms around that time. It has about a 2-week, 3-week period towards the end of April through Mother's Day, and it is an essential filler. People have been kind of rude in the past on comments saying they didn't like it in our bouquets on YouTube, but our customers have seemed to really love it. And the important part about Bupleurum is it bulks up the bouquet from a stem count and a weighty size. When I'm putting very expensive premium peonies in the bouquet, it is hard to sell a 3-stem peony bunch for $25. There has to be more in there, and there's just not a ton that blooms at that time, but Bupleurum does. And I like it, and it lasts a really long time for customers. And the main thrust of what they're paying for anyways are their premium focal flowers. The Bupleurum is very inexpensive, but they get a lot of it to fill out in their vase. So I'm keeping it. I like Bupleurum. I'm also subtweeting Eric a little bit because he doesn't love Bupleurum quite as much as I do, but it just has to stay. Like we would be lost without it in our Mother's Day bouquets. And then, so that's our spring crop. We have tulips, ranunculus, snapdragons, campanula, stalk we're trying, larkspur, Bupleurum. 7 flowers, obviously blooming at different times. Our bouquets are very streamlined. We're not putting 5 or 6 varieties of a flower. It's usually between like 1 and 3 varieties that people are getting, focused primarily on giving them the most amount of focal flowers for their money. People are coming to our flower stand for ranunculus, not Bupleurum, so I want to pack as many in there as I can profitably and then fluff it out with a bit of extra that I do have. So that's our spring. That will take us to about mid-May, give or take with the weather. Then we will pause and we'll come back about 5 weeks, 6 weeks later when our summer annuals are going to bloom. And our summer annuals that we are going to do are Lisianthus. And I'll be honest with you, Lisianthus is kind of the reason why we're going to do a short summer season, because I'm obsessed with Lisianthus. They grow well here. They're beautiful. They're unique and special and different. Florists love them. That was the one where I looked at Eric and I was like, I can't drop these. Like, I can't picture not growing these next year. And so we brainstormed and we thought about problems that we had of, summer sales being more, down, not necessarily down, a little bit down from years past, but just much slower than the spring. And I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons I do think is in the summer, hobby growers do pop up, and vegetable farmers are bringing things to market, and it tends to be sunflowers and zinnia focused, and they tend to sell them very cheaply. I'm talking like $5, $10 for the same amount of stems that we would put in our $25. Now, as a flower farmer, I would get defensive and say like, but our zinnias are harvested at the right time and they're going to last longer and they're bigger, or they're this unique variety. And I know all of these things to be true, and I try to add them in our marketing, but it just maybe isn't necessarily conveying or converting to sales in the way that it makes it worth it to farm in like the hottest, most miserable conditions of summer. And so we thought, okay, well, what summer bouquets can we put together that are going to be flowers that are not in the competition's bouquets? Like, how can we stand out and be different? And instead of dropping our prices or overstuffing and losing profitability to match them, we decided we're going to go in the other direction and continue to focus on our brand being luxury, specialty cut, professional, unique flowers. That's exactly what spring is all about. So that's what summer should be about. And Lisianthus absolutely fits the bill there. No one is just like throwing out Lisianthus seeds. We know that there is investment and high cost. There is risk. And then there's also just skill involved in learning how to grow these sorts of flowers. And so we're going to lean into that. It's still an experiment. We'll see if sales convert in the summer, and I'd be happy to share with you guys our results. I'm hopeful A lot of it's on me because I do our marketing and branding, but I'm hopeful that we can convince people how special and beautiful these flowers are and what a treat it is to have them for the 3 weeks or so that they bloom for us. But we can't just sell straight Lisianthus. So to go with the Lisianthus, I am going to also do Celosia in our tunnel, but I'm not going to do like the obnoxious, bright, saturated in your face Celosia. I'm going to be trying to pick a bit more of the specialty colors in the pastel family to complement the Lisianthus, because the Celosia stems can be nice and thick. You've got the nice foliage, and then you have a nice little secondary bloom to enjoy. So it bulks up the expensive Lisies. It lasts a long time, and I hope to pick colors that, you know, you can't go to Lowe's and get a terracotta Selway Celosia seed. You know, you're going to get something with ketchup and mustard colors, and that's the Celosia that you see. Try to go a different direction. And then lastly, this is the last flower on our list. It's a gamble, but I think it's worth trying to keep with the more specialty cut flower theme for our flower stand. And I'm going to bring back Gladiolus. So we grew Glads year 1 and 2, and I dropped it for years 3 and 4. I personally love Glads. I know they're polarizing. I think the older generation sometimes equates them with funeral flowers, or they just don't like them. Fair, but I really like them, and I plan to grow a color palette that is not your bright fire truck red funeral flower, or even like the giant size that proportionally feels off because it's used in like a huge spray arrangement. I'm going to be trying to have them be a bit smaller and in the pastel family so that it complements the Lisianthus and the Celosia well. It's a gamble for a couple reasons. One, if you notice, this is like a 3-week season, and so I have to correctly time my Celosia and my Glad planting to coincide with the Lisianthus, because if I've got a bunch of Celosia and no Lisies, that's gonna suck. I could probably sell Glad bunches, but it just would be better if they all kind of were in sync at the same time. So that's a bit of the gamble there, but I'm willing to try it because I would love to make Lisianthus work on our farm in that, you know, mini summer season. Glads are also, I know you've probably already yelled at the camera about thrips with Glads, and I'm totally aware. I've grown them really well with minimal-ish thrip problem in the past. I think my last year there was a little bit of issue, but I'm also doing my research, like where you have to read those like technical university paper studies that kind of make you go cross-eyed. I'm working through those on how to properly deal with thrips. I'm going to do all the tips and tricks that I get and see if it works. If it doesn't, and I literally tried everything and we still have thrips, well, then when I record our 2027 video, you can laugh when I drop Glads. But I want to try and be hopeful, and I also just want to grow Glads again. I think a lot of our customers will like the Glads, particularly if I pick colors that are different from what maybe they would see in a grocery store environment or they've seen in more event work. So that'll be Celosia, Lisies, and Glads for our summer season. So that is a total of 10 flowers. And I added stock in Glads. We took out Status and Zinnias and Marigolds and Sunflowers. We took all of those out. And yeah, I'm really excited. We spent the day, well, I should say we, Eric, spent the day putting the ground post corners in for our high tunnel in cement, which felt very permanent and serious. And so I'm getting really excited. I also finalized, this is why I'm filming the video today, I finalized our tunnel plan and timing and got all of our plug orders in and stuff. And so it's just feeling like we're really about to launch. Oh, I forgot. This is why I didn't say it, because they're not mature yet. But we purchase local wholesale peonies to go with our Mother's Day bouquet. So that's why I didn't include them in the list, because our peonies are still too young to like really cut on in any measurable way. So I have a friend who grows like 30 minutes from here. She focuses on wholesale and she grows absolutely beautiful peonies. Buy them from her. I accompany them with our filler and secondary focals, and that's what we focus on Mother's Day. We are planting a whole new peony field this fall, and in a couple years, ours will be mature enough to where we're working towards not having to rely so much on wholesale. If we get to a volume where I still need to buy some wholesale, that's fine. But the goal would be that they eventually in a couple years are all our own peonies. So I'm not technically including it because I'm not growing them right now. I just feel like I'm taking care of foliage and nothing else. But peonies are our main focal for Mother's Day. So that's our list. Slashed and burned more things. If you're mad at me or have opinions, leave it in the comments. Give me like an emoji. Give me like a thumbs up. You're happy with me. Or give me like a red X that you're mad that I didn't have, that I hated on zinnias, or I don't grow dahlias or any of that. I'm just curious what you guys think. So leave those emojis in the comments. I love hearing from you guys. And happy growing. I bet all of you are starting seeds now, or you're getting ready for plugs to be delivered, going to be pulling out rows, digging dahlias, doing all of the dirty fall work soon. But it's exciting to talk about and think about a new year, and I'm excited to share it with you guys. So thanks for watching.